let us go a bit deeper and do an experiment. And again, it's not an official recommendation to remove components, but if you are really going for the minutes to save during an upgrade, the component section seems to be very promising. So what we do here in this experiment is something I spent quite a while in the past weeks on. We have a container database, a CDB, with 3 user-created pluggable databases, a PDB $seed, of course, and we start with the default set of components, as Rodrigo explained before, 15 components in each container. So you see the components which are discussable on the very right side of the slide. Other components are non-discussable because it doesn't make sense to remove an Oracle server. So we will remove component after component, and to compare timings, we have 8 CPU cores, and I will always use the classic upgrade. So use cutctl pl options in the auto upgrades config file with -t, T for classic, obviously, right? Traditional, this is how I remember it, but it's the classic upgrade. And we will use that and not capture replay upgrade. So let us start here. Our starting point will be 1912.0 with 15 components in each container. This means 75 entries in registry dollar altogether because we have 5 containers, CDB $root, PDB $seed, and 3 user-created PDBs. The root gets always upgraded first, as Rodrigo explained already. 4 PDBs, including the seed, will be upgraded in parallel, and 2 workers in each PDB. At the end, we will end up in 21.3 with 4 components in each container, the minimum required set of components, and 20 entries in registry dollar. So let us start here and map this to the component entries. So what you see on the slide right now on the left side is the starting point. So you see all the components in registry dollar or CDB registry. If they are valid, they should be. And the endpoint will be just catalog and cutproc. This is the Oracle server. Rack doesn't matter here in that case because the option is off and doesn't consume any upgrade time. And XDB, which is mandatory. So we strip it down really to the absolute minimum. And components have dependencies. So while you could think, oh, I just go into a database and I rip out a component, be careful. Ripping out that component may mean that you destroy other components as well, or that they automatically get removed as well. So the workspace manager, which strangely enough got created in a different database create script very early before the components come in, can go independently. Context or Oracle text, the same thing. Before 19c, label security could be removed by itself alone, even though there's no real removal process for label security, but with the old script delivered in 12.1 days, you can still do this. Now in 19c, this has changed. In 19c, you need to remove data vault if you want to remove label security. Then the OLAP piece, XOQ and APS, the analytical workspaces, belong together, and it doesn't make sense to have one and just leave the other. The interesting part is everything grouped around Java VM. So Java VM is the OJVM, the Java Virtual Machine Database. And when you have ORDIM multimedia, which is desupported now, but still a core component is there, even though the API is gone, it depends on Java VM. So I can remove ORDIM, but if I remove Java VM, I remove automatically ORDIM and in addition, always also spatial data option, SDO, because also that depends on Java VM. And the same applies to the XDK. When I remove Java VM, the XDK needs to go as well because it relies on Java VM. So this will be my approach here. I start removing the independent components at first. Workspace manager, then text, then I come to the security components, label security, data vault. Then we rip out OLAP, data option, spatial data option, multimedia, and finally Java VM and the XDK together. So this will be the walkthrough. And then I measured the timings. So what you see here is overall, start with the bird's eye view. We brought down the upgrade from 47 minutes to 36 minutes. So by removing the components, I saved 9 minutes upgrade time. Now you may say, well, 9 minutes is nothing. But I have no data in my database. I just went through the bare components with nothing else. And you may have way more containers already. Some of our customers have 150 pluggable databases. So then you may see a bigger effect. Then it makes a difference if your upgrade took 6 hours or if it takes 5 hours and 5 minutes. So just to give you a bare line, and two components stand out here. While the workspace manager, text, data vault label, and the OLAP options have not big impact here because I don't use them. The biggest impact I could see was the spatial data option, and of course Java VM XDK removal or XML, because these two are relatively have a big footprint in the dictionary, and they require also some upgrade work. So these are the most promising ones. And please, again, this is not a recommendation to remove SDO or Java VM blindly. I just want to show what happens if your database has the components compared to without them in terms of the upgrade relation. So these are the ones with the biggest impact. Now I could blindly say, oh, the upper part of the slide from Workspace Manager to OLAP, that really doesn't matter, but the lower part matters. And since ORDEM is desupported anyways, why, if I want to remove something, I just take the lower part of the slide, I remove Java VM and XDK, and with that also ORDEM and SDO, and then my database upgrade may be much, much faster. So this is the idea here. But remember that slide from before, upgrade with many PDBs doesn't scale linear. So more workers generally don't mean like faster upgrades. And the same applies here, especially with the components. So ripping them out from 150 PDBs doesn't necessarily mean that my upgrade is now 50% faster. There's still some contention happening in a dictionary. So you need to test and evaluate. Second option or second thing to just think about is, if I remove now all components, what will be the effect? And I thought from all these tests that ripping out components on a CDB root may not have such a drastic effect. You may save a few minutes. That could be the case. But on the other side, when you start really dynamically plugging in and plugging out, you may see the problem later on that a component is missing in CDB root and you're coming over with a PDB with that component. So you need to install it afterwards. So a workaround may be to create a CDB root with all the components, but make sure during the creation DBCA in the configuration assistant that you tick off the boxes for include in PDB, because then the PDB seed won't have them. And when you provision in the middle of my slide a fresh PDB, it has no options except for the standard options. But if you plug in now, or if you want to create afterwards an option in a PDB, for instance, you want SDO, you want spatial data option, which means you need to create Java VM and XDK as well, then you can create it afterwards in the PDB without being in trouble, because your root container has all the core pieces for the components. So that is possible, maybe a workaround. And with that, a comparison again to map this back. What is the difference in my setup? So on the left side, we see everything is there. All my containers, all my 3 PDBs, my seed, my root, have all components, versus on the right side, I removed everything. But then in the middle, you see the result of the upgrade when I have the components only in CDB root, but nowhere else. Then I still save a good amount of time, not as much as I saved before with over 10 minutes, but I save at least 5 minutes and a bit, and I still have a lot of flexibility. Still, final thought here, you need to find the right balance between the functionality and complexity and upgrade duration. So don't go in blindly and remove everything, because it may cost trouble later on. But if you are hunting for the final minute, removing components, especially as Rodrigo explained before, due to the effect that most components upgrade strictly serially and aren't even parallelized by itself and don't benefit from the parallel upgrade at all, removing components may be promising if you want to gain some upgrade speed.